go out to the guest line right now and welcome in the former head football coach at Mississippi State, also Florida, and now does a great job on the ESPN, and that is our pal Dan Mullen. Coach, appreciate the time. How you been?
I've been great. How about you?
Well, I've been fantastic. So let me just start you off with the committee. What was the initial reaction? I don't think any of these teams got screwed over because they all stubbed their toe, but I wasn't surprised that Bama was in over Miami. Does Bama, when you look at them getting in, does a school like Miami, Ole Miss, or even South Carolina have a legitimate gripe, in your opinion, with the committee?
I think first everybody has a gripe, right? I think everybody also stubbed their toe. My tough ones at looking at it. I love to see winning on the field, right? But when you put all the resumes together, and here comes the hard one. I struggle with what the committee actually looks at. And because it seems to change not just from year to year, it seems to change almost week to week.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, and you start with the big two. Let's talk Miami. Miami has two tough losses to two very good teams in very close games. That's a pretty good argument. Those are their losses. When you compare those losses to the other people, Alabama's got some bad losses now, really bad ones. They have 3 score losses on their resume to teams that aren't very good and aren't going, not like non-bowl teams. You look at Ole Miss, they have some bad losses, and then you look at South Carolina. Well, the one thing, if we want to judge everybody together, is they have some head-to-head losses. Those teams have actually played, and one team won and one team lost. So I think that's the toughest deal. Now, but my sticking point with Miami, in my gut, I think Miami should have been ahead of Alabama. That's my gut. But they don't have great wins either. And winning has to mean something, And so when you want to make the argument that winning means something, well, boy, South Carolina went out there. Look at strength of schedule. They could sit there and make the argument, hey, we went just beat Clemson the last game. We didn't move up. Alabama lost to Oklahoma and then kind of beat like Mercer and a down Auburn team since that point, and seem to be rewarded with what they're doing. There's other teams down the stretch that could have an argument that they should be rewarded more. So I don't know that there's the right answer. My answer is there's no consistency in what goes on. And, the right answer, honestly, is blow it up and start over. Right. That's the deal. My answer, like I'd have some, you get to where you can have factual evidence where you go win. If you went to the NFL right now and you sat there and they say, hey, who's going to get in the playoffs? Well, we're going to do it on a vote more than, your record. Like if teams are close, we're going to vote. We're going to vote. Could you imagine the meltdown of a team saying, hey, I know you guys, I'm looking at your record, that your strength of record wasn't good. These guys have some better wins. You didn't play a real strong schedule this year. You're out. Records don't matter. And I think that's one of the tough things with it. So my gut would have told me Miami. When you look at the resumes, you can make the argument Alabama, a little bit better resume. South Carolina has the Alabama and Ole Miss problem. But Ole Miss has some bad losses now, right? Their losses are Kentucky, Arkansas, and Florida. Well, Miami's sitting there and said, we beat Florida by 30, So, let's compare that way, because there's not a lot of compare. You find whatever you can compare, I guess, and try to compare the game. So that's my feeling. That's my long ramble on to tell you. I don't know that I have the best answer, but I would have felt Miami should be in. The other big issue I have, and I don't know what anybody else saying, hey, this weekend's results only matter to teams that are playing, right? Or there's no data point that can change anybody else that's not playing this weekend. Well, they should. They really should, because you know what? Hey, if Texas beats Georgia, Georgia's 10-3. They're comparing them. Maybe let's compare them to some 10-2 and 9-3 teams. Well, they lost to Ole Miss and Alabama head to head. You say, hey, well, we're punishing you for playing this game. Well, should SMU be punished for playing the game if they lose? I'm not sure.
Well,
But it's
that's my
another
question
data
for you, Dan, because, hey, I don't think Miami got screwed with Alabama getting in. But if SMU loses their ACC championship game and Alabama gets in over them, which then the SMU resume is very similar to the Miami resume, that's what I'm fascinated to see. If Clemson wins this championship game, if then SMU's out.
Well, then how does this game only affect SMU's resume but doesn't affect Alabama's resume, right? Let's look.
Fair.
Hey, it affects South Carolina's resume. South Carolina would have the argument. We just beat Clemson at Clemson, right? And they're the ACC champion. Doesn't that strengthen our resume at that point? I listen, if you're going to play the games, either count them or don't. Either say, hey, the playoff was picked this week. These games don't matter at all. Or do they matter? But if they matter to some, they need to matter to all. And that becomes the issue for me. I think SMU, by playing this game, I think SMU's in and should be in no matter what the result of the game. Now, listen, and they've shown it with injury. If their quarterback gets hurt, two other guys, right, Rashard Smith goes down and they lose 72-3, well, then maybe I might reconsider. You know what I mean? But it would have to be something devastating like that for me to really think that way. I'm still waiting to see where, Penn State's good win is. If they lose this week. Yeah, there's so many. Let them. If we're going to count this week's game, let them play this week's game. Reevaluate everybody's resume again after this week. I don't think a team should be punished greatly, though, for losing. If you're going to punish SMU, I think Georgia's out then if they lose. I think they got to be out.
Yeah, but that's not going to be the case. You know that because of the SEC.
And then it can't go to Logos then, because then it goes to Logos because then they're 10-3 with 3 losses, the same as Ole Miss and Alabama. Alabama beat them head to head.
But do you view the SEC and the ACC on the same playing field? Because that would be the retort. It's like, hey, the SEC is better than the ACC.
Let's look at some of the crossover games. I think you got to go to the crossover games, right? The Miami lost to Georgia Tech. Well, Georgia Tech lost to Georgia by a fraction of a point.
Yeah.
In 8 overtimes. And there may be some questionable calls in there. Could have flipped it a different one. But I think when you look at all of it, and listen, I'm an SEC guy. I know how tough it is in that league, how hard it is to play in that league, and it is. And road games in that league are brutal. ACC is a really good conference too, top to bottom. There's a lot of good teams in there. Is the Big Ten that good?
I think the Big Ten has a great team in Oregon. Ohio State was fraudulent up against Michigan, and Penn State doesn't have a big win. That's how and Indiana in their biggest game of the season didn't show up against Ohio State.
And it is. I don't know the Big 12. I don't know they have a great team. They have a lot of really good teams in the Big 12. When you're judging these, and all of it is just things that don't really matter, they're all like not tangible things. I think it makes it really hard.
Do you think there is a great team in college football this year? Because I was not a fan of going to 12. It's been the perfect storm this year to go to 12 because outside of Oregon, everyone has taken the baton and fallen flat on their face.
Yeah, and Oregon's a loss away this weekend from, kind of head scratching. Right? I mean, you're kind of scratching your head. If Oregon loses to Penn State can jump up and down. We have a tough loss and a great win. And I'll give them the Illinois win. Illinois, they're decent at the end of the year. Hey, just because you weren't great at the beginning of the year or your record wasn't at the end of the year, Illinois went 9-3. I think they're a pretty good football team to do that. So it is. I'm with you. I don't know. I think it'd be really tough this year if you were going to 4, who those 4 would be. It'd be really interesting on who the 4 are. But with 12, it's a perfect year to do it. And, I listen, until we kind of scrap the system and start over where you look at records, I have a great one. I'm working on a great system I'm going to put out. I'll put it out on social media.
You got it.
You have 8, 19 conferences, right? Eight divisions with 9 teams in each. The first and second place get in. If you win your division, you're in. You play everyone in your division. So, hey, we won our division. That's the qualification to get in. We're in, and let's go play. And now the argument is not, well, Miami beat Florida, who Ole Miss lost to Florida, but Ole Miss beat Georgia. But Georgia beat Florida. Is the ACC schedule better? Which actually is a good win? I always laugh sometimes. At the end of the year, back before the major opt-out, before it was like opt-out central.
Sure.
You'd finish that bowl season at the end, right? And people would look and say, hey, this league, we didn't give them enough credit. Those teams were actually better all year than we thought they were. But now they play these bowl games at the end, and all these leagues cross over, start playing each other. And you're like, well, that league maybe wasn't as strong as we thought, and this league ended up being a little better than we thought, but you didn't know that. Where right now we have a system where there's a group of people sit in a room trying to judge and do it off of data points that randomly change at all times.
What was your reaction, Coach Dan Mullen?
I'm going to throw this one out at you.
Go ahead.
At-large bid this week. One of those teams plays, they're going to be an at-large bid. Their quarterback gets hurt in the game. They have to be out, right? Because we threw Florida State out last year because their quarterback got hurt.
Yeah, I think it's different, though, because last year was a 4-team system. This year it's 12. So I think it gives a team like that a landing spot.
But it knocked you out because of it. Like last year. Like I'm not talking the conference champion. They're already in. The conference champions are already in. Let's go with who are the tricky ones?
Like you're saying teams that won't win their conference?
So let's go. Georgia loses.
Okay.
Carson Beck gets hurt and is out for the rest of the year. Are they in or out?
I still think they'd put Georgia in. I don't think they're going to penalize Georgia for losing the conference.
SMU loses and Kevin Jennings gets hurt.
I think they'll show their SEC bias and they'll keep SMU out. I'm not saying there's consistency.
Isn't that kind of crazy?
But that's just how it's going to go.
Last year, that became a big data point. This year, then you're saying, well, it is not. It's relative for one team, not other. That's the hard part for me with the whole playoffs. The just lack of a little bit of consistency, and that's the shame of it all. And like I said, it changes week to week. It changes all the time. And sometimes it's hard to always get a straight answer of what, because they don't want to sell people out behind the committee doors and what goes on. But you know what? The fact that we all argue about it all the time makes college football great, makes it interesting, makes fan bases passionate about their team. And college football never disappoints on a Saturday. And I don't think it'll disappoint this weekend either.
Let me get your reaction, Coach Dan Mullen, on Belichick interviewing for the UNC job. What did you make of that one when you read it yesterday?
Well, obviously, you look at Bill. Bill wants, the feel is Bill's trying to get back into coaching, right? Whether it's NFL or college. He wants to be on the sidelines. He wants to be coaching. So anybody have the opportunity to get a guy like Bill Belichick, that would be great. I think it's a long time since he's done a home visit in recruiting. I sitting there on Bill's face at the end of the year meetings, right? When you talk like Nick and all those guys and the different people, he's sitting down there and a kid comes into his office at the end of the year, the third string running back, and coming in his office and he's a list. Hey, let's go through. I'm going to break down. I have the tape on how you get better. Let's look at how you want to improve, things we need to do, good and bad. And the kid's looking at like, Coach, how much you paying me? I'm in or I'm out. Pay me my money or I'm going to the portal. And I mean, him looking at you like, what are you talking about?
Right? Maybe you should go to Duke. You don't have it.
Yeah, like what are you talking about? Right? Like, let's talk about ball. Let's talk about how you're getting better. Let's talk about this. And kid's like, I'm here to renegotiate my contract. And then after spring ball, hey, let's break it all down after spring. And you know what? The kid's in there again saying, hey, I need to re-up one more time or I'm going to the portal again. I don't know that's Bill, got Bill written all over it. But listen, anybody that has the opportunity to get Bill Belichick coaching their team should jump at it.
How about you? I saw your name thrown out there for the UNC job. You stayed on TV, you getting back into coaching.
I love this TV life. I always say this, if the right opportunity presents itself for not just me, but for me and my family, right? Because it is. It's. I think people don't get what it takes, how life consuming it is, especially at the college level, for not just you, for everybody in your family. It's a family life decision. If the right opportunity presents itself, you never know. I never say never, but I really enjoy the TV lifestyle. Sure, don't get me wrong. I love drawing up ball plays now. I love developing. I love coaching. The crazy one is, when we're in studio on Saturday, you watch the games and it's good and it's bad. But when you're on we go call the Thursday night games. Like I'm with Matt Berry and Harry Lyles, our whole Thursday night crew, and we're all out there calling the Thursday night games at that point. And you're in the stadium, the juice, the energy before the game. That's when you really start missing.
Who's going to win, by the way, in your opinion, Georgia or Texas in the SEC title game?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I always think it's really hard to beat a team twice in the same year. But Texas's defense is really good. I'm still waiting for their offense to really impress me. And Georgia can play defense now. Now, they're not as dominant as they've played over the last couple of years. I went down and broke down the first game. Texas's offense lost the game more than Georgia winning it. 2 turnovers, one really good. One of them was great defensive scheme. One of them was really bad offense. And before you can blink an eye, it's 17-0. And Georgia's not going to lose a 17-0 game. They're just not, And when they have that lead, I don't see them. That when you're Kirby and that defense, they tighten up a little bit. But unless Carson Beck implodes, I don't see them losing that type of game. So can Texas find some offense? And if they can't, we know Georgia can find enough offense. And they play defense. I don't know if Texas can find enough offense to win the game.
And then when you look at Boise State, they win. They're in the college football playoff tonight. Do you still think Ashton Jeanty can win the Heisman, or does it go to Travis Hunter?
You know what? If you know me, I love college football tradition, right? I love all of college football tradition. I love what it's all about. Heisman Trophy, I love what. I'm so happy it's not the MVP of the quarterback or the quarterback of the number one team in the country, right? Now, I don't want to knock Dylan Gabriel. He's had a heck of a year, but you don't just hand it the Heisman because you're number one, the quarterback of the number one team in the country, or the MVP of the number one team in the country. I think these are the 2 most deserving Heisman Trophy winners we've had in quite a long time. And listen, if Jeanty goes off tonight, he's got a national spotlight in a meaningful game. If he goes off for 300 yards, I think it gives, like something like that, it gives him a chance. But I think it's going to be Travis Hunter 1, Ashton Jeanty 2, and nobody else even gets a first or second place vote. I think they are so far above and beyond everybody else as deserving Heisman Trophy winners. And I think it's 1 and 2. And Travis Hunter's done something you haven't seen in a long time. But so is Jeanty. I mean, he's done something you haven't seen in college football in a long time. But I would probably go with the lean to Travis Hunter.
He's Coach Dan Mullen, does a great job on ESPN. Coach, always appreciate the insight. Thanks so much. We'll be looking forward to that manifesto for what college football will look like down the road, all right?
Great, I will. Great to be with you. Have a great day.